A two, a one, two, three, four. Hey now, everybody. It's Nick again. It's just me. Matt's gone. He's on another vacay with the family. I'm glad that he's getting out there. He's enjoying his time after his vaccination's done and a semi post-COVID world. Now we're in a CV Delta world. We'll just call it that. But I'm glad that he's out there enjoying time with his family. And you guys get to enjoy a solo cast with me. It seems like Matt and I have been having dueling solo casts recently just because of life and everything else that's been going on that's prevented us from having a duo show together. It's been kind of weird. Last week, you guys had the entertaining guest of Visual Approach Photography, one of my favorite photographers recently in the Star Wars toy community. So if you haven't listened to that show already, it is up and available for you on all podcast platforms. So make sure to check that out. And then after Mr. Approach hops off the show, Matt takes you back in for a nice solo landing with just himself. And this show, there's no guest. It's just me. And you know how it goes on a solo Nick show. I don't like to take up 3 hours of your time just by myself because, one, if I talk for 3 hours straight, I would hate myself. And two, you would hate me as well. So I'm going to try to get you out here in a nice hour and 20-minute long at max kind of pace. And to be honest with you guys, there's really not a ton that's going on right now in Star Wars world. Obviously, we have episode 14 of the Bad Batch out. That's War Mantle, and we will get to that one soon. But I do want to touch on a couple of things before we get to the Bad Batch breakdown. And it's just some little Star Wars news. Before we get there, I just want to tell you what I've been up to. So I wasn't here last week because, unfortunately, I was home, but we were having some construction done on the house. Specifically, we were having our floors replaced. And unfortunately, there was just a lot of noise going on. They removed our previous floors and they had to grind down the subflooring to make sure that everything was level and all things were up to snuff for the new flooring going in. And they were literally grinding the floor in 2 rooms that are right next to the podcast recording HQ here in Austin, Tejas. And I was tracking it, and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it with the sound. I even sent Matt a sound recording from my phone of what it sounded like. It basically sounded like a full-on construction area in my home. So it was not conducive to recording, especially with the guest joining us. So I didn't want to distract from, the awesome stuff that Matt and Visual Approach were able to talk about on the show. So that was the situation for me last week. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it. It sucked. But outside of that, I do have some recommendations for you guys who, sometimes come to us for recommendations about games, potentially for TV shows and stuff like that. So my girlfriend and I have been watching multiple TV series, and we actually finished 3 TV series last night. One of them was Cobra Kai. I had talked a little bit about this in the Discord a few weeks ago when we first started it. And Tones, one of our good buddies, mentioned that Cobra Kai was awesome. It gets better every season. And he's right. We've just finished season 3 of Cobra Kai on Netflix, and it's fucking top notch. So if you are a fan of the Karate Kid movies from the 80s, make sure to go watch Cobra Kai on Netflix because that show it's really fantastic. And they do a great job of paying homage to the old movies, but also building the characters and telling stories that make sense essentially 30 years later. So that's an awesome series. The second one that we finished, the first season of, the second season comes out in August. It's called The Other Two, which is a really funny show on HBO Max. It stars, the only star that you might know from that is Molly Shannon. If you're a fan of Saturday Night Live from back in the early 2000s, late 90s, you know who Molly Shannon is. Also, if you've seen Night at the Roxbury or Superstar or any of the movies, like any of those kind of like SNL type movies from back back then she was usually in those too. That show is hilarious. It's about a family that has the youngest kid basically turn into like a TikTok star and become globally famous. And it follows his two older siblings as they are like struggling to make their way in New York. It's a truly hilarious show, and you have to watch it. And the third one that we finished was High School Musical, the musical series. Now, yes, I was not a huge High School Musical fan. I hadn't seen any of the movies before we started watching it. But Taylor is a massive High School Musical fan. So we just finished season 2 of that show. And if you are a fan of those movies from the DComs, the Disney Channel original movies from the 2000s, it's definitely worth checking out the series. It's really well made. All of the kids that are in the show are incredible vocalists, incredible dancers. And if you're a fan of Olivia Rodrigo right now, that's essentially, her big project before she turned into a global singing superstar. So that's what I've been up to. I've been playing a lot of Final Fantasy 14, actually, the Final Fantasy MMO. And I've been really enjoying that. So if you're a fan of like Persistent Worlds or MMO type games, I would definitely recommend Final Fantasy 14. It's a really refreshing take on a Western MMO. It doesn't look like garbage like a lot of Western MMOs do. The story being told is actually really good. And I like the combat systems in it too. So if you're looking for a game to play, I would recommend Final Fantasy 14 or Pokemon Unite on Switch. I've been playing a lot of Pokemon Unite with a couple of my friends here in Austin, and it's a really fun game. It's a more casual take on a MOBA that features some of your favorite Pokemon, and overall, it's just something that you can do quick. The games are literally on a 10-minute timer, so they can't go longer than 10 minutes. And it's really fun. It's a really fun competitive game to play on your Switch, so I would check that out too. So that's kind of the Nick life update. I will be here for sure unless there is a massive unforeseen circumstance that pops up. I will for sure be here next week, the 10th. Which is when we record on Tuesdays. So I will be here for the next week's recording, and I will be here for the 17th recording. So no worries there. No worries there. So hopefully Matt and I can group back up, have a good bros cast again next week. But who knows? Because life is fucking weird, right? But you know what? Let's get into it. Let's get into the Star Wars stuff that's happening now, guys. And the first thing I want to talk to y'all about is a brand new original special that was just announced today. Today, as in August 3rd, Tuesday, August 3rd. And that is Lego Star Wars Terrifying Tales. That's going to be coming to Disney Plus. This is a Halloween special that's going to hit Disney Plus on October 1st. And as it is described on StarWars.com, this is a post Rise of Skywalker event starring Poe Dameron and BB-8. So this is kind of the blurb on the show from StarWars.com. It says, after the events of Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker, Poe Dameron and BB-8 must make an emergency landing on the volcanic planet of Mustafar, where they meet the greedy and conniving Graballa the Hutt. The crime boss has purchased Darth Vader's castle and is renovating it into the galaxy's first all-inclusive Sith-inspired luxury hotel. Look at that. While waiting for his X-Wing to be repaired, Poe, BB-8, Graballa, and Dean, a plucky and courageous young boy who works as Graballa's mechanic, venture deep into the mysterious castle while Vader's loyal servant, Vinay, Vinay. Along the way, Vinay shares 3 creepy stories linked to ancient artifacts and iconic villains from across all eras of Star Wars. As Vinay spins his tales and lures our heroes deeper into the shadowy underbelly of the castle, a sinister plan emerges. With the help of Dean, Poe, and BB-8, will have to face their fears, stop an ancient evil from rising, and escape to make it back to their friends. Some of the voice actors in this, you guys might recognize. So Tony Hale is going to be voicing Vinay. Tony Hale is he's been in a lot of comedic series. So if you've watched Arrested Development, he was Buster Bluth. If you watched Veep, he was Gary. He's a really, really funny actor. So cool to see him in this terrifying Tales series. Poe is not going to be voiced by Oscar Isaac this time. He's going to be voiced by a voice actor named Jake Green. So a bit of a change there. Oscar did voice Poe in the Resistance TV series, but we know now that he's busy with other things. So Jake Green will be taking the role of Poe Dameron in this one. And another Star Wars favorite, Mary Elizabeth McGlynn, is returning to voice the droid NIL-8. You gotta like that, right? Annihilate. Good stuff. Mary has been in Star Wars Resistance. She was in episodes. She was Governor Price in Star Wars Rebels. And Mary Elizabeth McGlynn is really a rock star of the voice acting world. If you're not familiar with her work, she's really a joy. And she was also one of the critical guest stars on Critical Role. If you watch the D&D show Critical, so there you go. So generally, these stories, these Lego tales, aren't canon from my recollection. Especially like these holiday, like the holiday special, and I don't think this one either will be considered canon. I don't know if they want to lock themselves into a canonical representation that Vader's castle on Mustafar was literally bought by a Hutt and then turned into a hotel. So we'll see where that goes, but. That is a brand new announcement from Star Wars and Lucasfilm. That's going to be coming out October 1st on Disney Plus. Lego Star Wars Terrifying Tales. So keep your eye out for that. I'm pretty sure it'll be fun. And if these stories, these tales that Vinay are telling are from all eras of Star Wars, I assume that we could get some cool lore about Old Republic days. Maybe bringing in somebody like Malik, like Revan, like Darth Bane, some of these old Sith that are kind of lost now to new canon. So it'll be interesting to see, which stories they tell, if it's stories that we're familiar with, are there characters that we're familiar with, and the path down which these tales take us. So very cool, very interesting stuff there. Check it out, October 1st on Disney Plus. Next up is a quick little story here from The Wrap, I believe, Digital Spy. That's who it was, and it's a story about Felicity Jones and her openness to returning to Star Wars as Jyn Erso. I think it's pretty widely accepted now that Rogue One is probably the most loved Star Wars movie that has been released by Disney. It seems like that's kind of the consensus out there. I know that Matt and I have voiced our opinions on our favorites from the Disney timeline. I think Matt says Rogue One. Mine is definitely TFA, with Rogue One a close second. But if you've seen Rogue One, then you know that Jyn Erso is the main character, this kind of plucky, not quite rebel, who essentially helps to give the rebellion the Death Star plans that they need to take it out in the beginning or at the end of episode 4, I hope. But you also know that Jyn Erso and Cassian Andor get pretty much completely vaporized at the end of the movie. So there was never any thought that her character may return to Star Wars, especially in a post Rogue One fashion, because it would just not be possible. But there have been conversations had about her potentially returning in a pre-Rogue One timeline, maybe in the Cassian Andor TV series, if there's a way to weave her in there. We know that Cassian and Jyn met for the first time in Rogue One, so it wouldn't be easy to do it. You would have to kind of have offshoot plot lines and other things happening to bring Jyn in a completely separate fashion. So it would be interesting to see how they do that. But Felicity herself is very much open to returning to the role of Jyn Erso. She was promoting her upcoming film, The Last Letter from Your Lover, and she was asked, would you be willing to return to the role of Jyn Erso in Star Wars? And she literally says, never shut the door on Jyn Erso, never. And as I mentioned, it's just a limited time frame for her to be able to return. You would essentially have to bring her back soon enough before Rogue One to where she's not really like a teenager or a child, and she could still be played by Felicity. But you could not have it after. At least most people don't think you could have it after. Because according to Felicity, she was having a conversation with someone. It could have been a fan. It could have been somebody else that she was familiar with. But essentially, this is what she said. She said, I was having this conversation with someone the other day, and I was trying to say, about Jyn returning after Rogue One. She says, it's a bit of a nuclear fallout at the end of the film. And they were like, no, it didn't feel like that. It doesn't feel like they die. And then she says, and I was like, well, there you go. There's a chance of a comeback. I don't know who she was talking to. It was not clear from this, and she didn't go on to say about, who she was talking to. I thought it was pretty clear that her and Cassian both died in that ball of fire that literally consumed their whole bodies at the end of Rogue One. But the way that I put it in the story up on StarWarsTime.net is that death is only permanent about 60% of the time in Star Wars. We've seen people, literally fall down exploding chasms of Death Star at the end of Episode 6 with Palpatine. He was still alive. We saw, Ben Solo at the end of TROS get thrown down a massive pit and to his assumed death, and he was not dead. And many other times where characters should have died and didn't die. But I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that Jyn and Cassian at the end of Rogue One are about as dead as you get. So if there was ever to be a return to Jyn Erso for Felicity Jones, it would have to be in some sort of pre-Rogue One content. And I would even venture to say that it would be in the Cassian Andor series if there's some form or fashion to bring her back in through that avenue. But it is nice to know that a character, that an actor from the Disney Star Wars era is happy to return to the franchise. And I'm sure we would all love to see it if it would be possible for Jyn to make a return. So good stuff there. Felicity Jones definitely open to returning as Jyn Erso. Okay, here it is, everybody. We're gonna start talking Bad Batch here. And before I get into episode 14, War Mantle, I just want to give you my thoughts on episode 13 because I was not able to do that in the last one. 13 Infested was definitely another one of those little pit stops that you take in a long form TV series. A short form TV series in terms of format, but we're assuming that this is going to be a multiple season type of show. It hasn't been confirmed yet. It hasn't been confirmed yet. There's been no confirmation that the Bad Batch will continue past season 1 at this point. But given the way that the show is progressing and given the stories that are unfolding in the show, I would assume that a second season is all but locked in. Also, given the fact that this is created and blessed and run by the Lord and Savior of Star Wars right now, Mr. Dave Filoni. To me it's a foregone conclusion that there'll be a season 2. I mean, I could be proven wrong. It's very possible that there won't be a season 2, but I just feel like the amount of time that this show has to tell stories in terms of canonically in universe, you can definitely safely have a season 2 without worry of running into anything else for a bit. So episode 13, Infested, is, the way that I'll put it is, it's one of those episodes that we conveniently forget about exist in Clone Wars now. Everybody loves Clone Wars now. Everybody loves Clone Wars. Not even after, season 7 necessarily, but like after it had wrapped, even the final kind of cut off Netflix final season, everybody loved it. And the big thing and the big reason why everybody loved it is when you have something in its totality, when you have every episode completed and you have the story wrapped up, or at least what we thought was wrapped up at the time of the Netflix season, and now properly wrapped up with the end of season 7, you don't tend to remember the downtime, like the down periods of that show. I would even venture to say that most people can safely forget about 50% of Clone Wars. I mean, you have to remember that there are upwards of 150 episodes of Star Wars, The Clone Wars, and I'm just going to tell you that not every one of them was a banger. You had a lot of infested kind of mixed in there. And given that we're getting some of these types of episodes from Bad Batch, that's what leads me to believe that they're very comfortable throwing in some pit stops, some detours, some, filler, dare you say, because they're comfortable with the idea that this show is likely going to continue on for at least another season, potentially multiple more seasons, which means that you can't just, go out and shoot your entire load in one fucking season. You have to intersperse some of these pit stops in there so you can draw out your episode count, so you can build your world, so you can have a little bit more, a few more episodes per season. So while I do agree with Matt's assessment that Infested was likely one of the worst episodes of the season, I'm okay with it, because you need these types of episodes in there to kind of not tell your entire story in 8 episodes and in one season. So yes, I will say that. One thing too that I will say about Star Wars, which I think is funny, and I think this can apply to a lot of other, like, not even just Star Wars, but just to content media in general. There's a scene in Infested that doesn't quite mirror a scene. I won't even call it a scene. There's an action in Infested that also happens in War Mantle, and it just goes to show you that that actions in Star Wars and in other properties don't always have the same effect. It has the effect that you intend at the time. So what I'm talking about is in Infested, at one point, Durand is going through, and I think he's trying to find the Bad Batch as they try to steal his shipment of spice that he's supposed to give the Pikes. And he's going through the facilities, and at one point he encounters a locked door. He can't open it. Somebody's down there, and they're trying to pick it open, and it's just taking too long. So what does Durand do? He takes out his pistol and boom, shoots the lock. And what does the door do? It opens. Door opens when lock is shot. Okay, established in Infested. But in the next episode, in War Mantle, the same thing happens, where the Bad Batch is running from the now better looking stormtroopers, the non-clone troopers, the War Mantle troopers. They make it through a blast door, and what happens? One of the batch shoots the lock, and the door locks. So what have you learned from this? When you shoot a lock, your intention happens, not necessarily one specific thing. So if you want to shoot the lock and have the door open, just think about that and it'll happen. And if you want to shoot the lock and have the door closed, just think that you want it to close, and that'll happen. I just thought that was funny. I mean, and we've seen it multiple times in the movies and even the other TV series for Star Wars. It always seems that shooting a lock is the way to get something done, whether it be to open a door or to close a door. So I just thought that was a funny juxtaposition between those two episodes. Okay, so before we kick it off to my thoughts on episode 14, War Mantle, I want to pass it over to Mr. Matt Haywood because he had a nice pre-recorded opinion session for you guys to listen to. So I'm going to kick it over to Matt right now and let him regale you with his thoughts, his Easter eggs, and his key moments from War Mantle, and then I will come back to you and give you my thoughts and share some of my feedback on the show coming back from Matt. So take it away, Matt.
Hey now, everybody. I teased that this may happen. I knew I wouldn't be able to let an episode like War Mantle go without being able to express some of my hot air. So here we go, and then I'll go ahead and turn it back to Nick in the solo show. But overall, huge fan of S1 E14. Definitely a major rebound from last week's episode Infested, which quite frankly was just a bore fest. I mean, I talked about it on episode 172 of the Star Wars Time Show and how Infested just really didn't progress anything in the Bad Batch and was easily the season's worst episode by far. But that was not the case with War Mantle, which quite frankly I thoroughly appreciated for multiple reasons. It had a good mix of Easter eggs and Star Wars references, but more importantly, it had some pretty hardcore key moments in terms of things we need to be focusing on for the future of Bad Batch, but also just some of the lore and some of the fleshing out of the universe we got in this episode. So I'll kind of start with what I enjoyed the most was just I loved the first introduction of the TKs, the Stormtrooper units. I loved the Ralph McQuarrie style they went with. I mean, it's almost spot on to his original concept art. They had those slightly larger helmets, with a ridge, the more fierce looking eyes. So I 100% appreciated seeing Gen 1 Stormtroopers. I also loved all of the nods to Republic Commando. I mean, this was basically a Republic Commando fanboy treat. I mean, let alone just seeing clone commandos, but the fact that Scorch was included. Yes, Scorch from Delta Squad, the Republic Commandos gained. That was the gray and yellow clone commando that almost beat the shit out of the Bad Batch. Let's be real. It took all three of them, plus Gregor, to take him down. And he wounded Gregor. So I loved that nod to Republic Commandos, to that character. I mean, let's be real. Delta Squad was the first Bad Batch, if you will, the first elite clone force. So trust me, that this was all by design to kind of put that nod to Scorch in there, Republic Commandos, and how they were the genesis ultimately for the Bad Batch and them being a special force clone unit. I really enjoyed the facility. I mean, full-on Empire vibes there. I mean, it was almost like they were on the Death Star, from the walls, the blast doors, the consoles they tapped into. I mean, everything felt like we were watching A New Hope. I mean, they even had a prison rescue. So a huge fan of just the tone of the episode and how hardcore it slanted towards feeling like original trilogy material. I mean, even the orchestral score during the rescue was spot on to what you heard in A New Hope when Kenobi was going around, sneaking around, trying to disable the tractor beam. In terms of key moments and things I want people to pay attention to, obviously the first one is going to be narcissistic. I absolutely appreciate that they paid off on one of my main wants for this show, and that was to see how Gregor and Wolf end up with Rex. So we got one part of that puzzle has been shown to us. So I thoroughly appreciated the fact that they showed how Gregor made it out, broke his conditioning, all that fun stuff. All right, so just like some of the other clones, it's clear now that they can lose their conditioning, their allegiance to the Empire. He even mentioned, though, that some clones are still choosing to remain loyal to the Empire, like Scorch. So all big stuff, informative stuff. But like I said, anytime I get a prediction right, and I did predict that we'd see the rescue of Wolf and Gregor, at least we got one part of it right, I'm always going to sit there and mention that because I'm kind of an ass like that, right? But those of you that listen to the show, you get it, you love it, or you hate it, right? The main dude, he is loud and crazy. Clearly, the Hunter getting captured is huge. I think this is going to be the main fixation of the final 2 episodes' plots, rescuing Hunter, and this could very well introduce the thing I've been postulating all along, and that is the redemption of Crosshair, who shows up to rub it in Hunter's face at the end that he's been captured. I don't know. I just feel like somehow, some way, Crosshair's going to snap out of it and help his bros in the end, probably to the detriment to his own life. So that's big. I mean, Hunter getting captured is huge. Like I said, it's going to drive the final 2 episodes and what the batch gets into. The stakes are about as real as ever for the batch. And then finally, something else I took note of, and I think everyone else should too, and that's the fact that we're really starting to get to see Admiral Rampart's plans here for the clone forces and the Kaminoans. I mean, at the beginning, talking to Crosshair, they're shipping all the clones off of Kamino somewhere. I don't know if they're just going to, is this the genocide moment? Are they taking them somewhere just to execute them all? Who knows? Because it is clear some clones are loyal to the Empire, but I don't know if they want to keep them at all. So we got to see that. The ball is in motion. Plans are in motion. We're definitely headed towards the full transition from the clone army to the conscripted army, War Mantle, aka the Stormtroopers. But also at the end, he gave us some important revelations, and that's the fact that, yeah, he pretty much took out Lama Su. I'm guessing Lama Su isn't long for this world if he wasn't already taken out by those the elite clone commandos. But curiously, he is very interested in Nala Se and her scientific abilities. And, I kind of postulated this, speculated in my breakdown video, which you should check out on our YouTube channel, by the way, Star Wars Time Show on YouTube. But I believe the fact that Rampart, he's an Imperial agent, wanting to have someone with clone science skills kind of baked into their repertoire is very informative. I mean, this could 100% be how the Empire gets into its own cloning for Palpatine, and ultimately the cloning tech and the cloning facility we saw in The Mandalorian Season 2. So, it appears that they are going to use Nala Se to either gain insights into her knowledge in cloning or to, force her into servitude to do cloning stuff for the Empire. But I do think it's very important that Rampart specifically wanted her for her scientific skills, because it undoubtedly will play into the Empire's own cloning initiatives for the Emperor and whatever the hell may be going on in The Mandalorian. All right, my friends, like I said, just a few minutes for me to talk. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Nick. He'll deliver the rest of the show, his own take on the Bad Batch S1 E14 War Mantle, and everything else you need to know to be in the know for that galaxy that is so far, far away. May the Force be with you.
So, sun's out, bums are out, and hopefully your pubes are not out, right? Also, flip-flop season is upon us, and you're out here with those post-pandemic toenails. Don't worry, friends. Our friends at Manscaped have you covered. They just launched their 4th generation performance package in the Shears 2.0 nail grooming kit. Join the Manscaped movement by going to manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping with the code SWTS. And like I was saying, Matt and I have been lucky enough to test out the Performance Package 4.0. That includes the new trimmer, that includes the new nail shears, and that includes all of the awesome stuff that comes with it, including the foot deodorant, which I use on a daily basis because I have kind of feet, and being able to take care of them with the Shears 2.0 nail grooming kit and with the foot deodorant has been top notch for me. The Performance Package 4.0 includes the new Lawnmower 4.0. This trimmer will change the way you approach your grooming routine. The 4th generation trimmer features advanced skin-safe technology to reduce grooming accidents. You don't want any ingrown hairs or snags on your boys before beach season. The Lawnmower 4.0 has a 7,000 RPM motor with an on-off travel lock and gives you the ability to turn on the 4000K LED spotlight, which is actually really useful if you are in the dark or if you just kind of have like a dimly lit bathroom that doesn't have like good overhead lighting. The 4000K LED spotlight works really well. If the power grid goes out in Texas again, yes, thank you. That's where I live. We did lose power for quite a while. You can use your Lawnmower 4.0 to illuminate the way with this LED spotlight. I've actually done it before because I don't want to burn my cell phone battery, especially if the power's out, by using a flashlight. And I can't always remember where my flashlights are. So, hey, sometimes you just got to pick up the trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0, and light your way. The trimmer is also waterproof, so you can trim in the shower and not worry about your cleanup on aisle D. That is very helpful. The Performance Package 4.0 also includes the Weed Whacker to chop your worst weeds up top in your nose and ears. I've used that quite often, and it's been nice to not have just like nose hairs tickling me and stuff like that. Just top notch all around for men's grooming, top notch. The Weed Whacker is also waterproof and uses a 9,000 RPM motor powered 360-degree rotary dual blade system. So it gets all around there. You don't have to like spin it in your nose or twist it in. You put it in there, you give it a little swirl, and then bingo bango. The 360-degree rotary dual blade system handles it all. This nose and ear hair trimmer provides proprietary skin-safe technology, which helps prevent nicks, snags, and tugs in those sensitive little nostrils of yours. Use the Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant and Crop Reviver Ball Toner to keep you on your game in the heat. And I've definitely been using both of those regularly. The deodorant in particular. I now have 2 deodorants to put on after a shower. The underarm deodorant and the ball. Manscaped even threw in 2 free gifts to their Performance 4.0 package. The Manscaped Boxers, which I'm wearing right now and are absolutely fantastically comfortable, and the Shed Travel Bag. Bring your comfort in boxers to another level. The Shears 2.0 is a luxury 4-piece nail kit featuring tempered stainless steel tools, and it includes slashed tip tweezers, rounded point scissors, fingernail clippers, and a medium grit nail file. Like I said, I use pretty much all of them because I need to get my nail game on point. If you're wearing flip-flops and don't want people to see those nasty unclipped toes of yours, use the Shears 2.0 nail clipping luxury kit. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code SWTS at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code SWTS at manscaped.com. Tame that summer swamp in your pants with Manscaped. Thank you to Manscaped. Thank you to everybody who has supported us by using our code on manscaped.com. Every purchase that you make through them helps us out, helps pay for our server costs, and just generally helps the show. You can use the code SWTS on any purchase on manscaped.com, whether it be the Performance Package 2.0, the Lawnmower 4.0, or anything else on the site. So there you go. Thank you to Manscaped. All right. Thank you, Matt. We are back here. And overall, I have to agree with Matt that I think that this was one of the best episodes of the season. War Mantle this episode is essentially the beginning of a 3-episode arc to close out season 1. The capture of Hunter at the end, the confrontation with Crosshair, is essentially setting up. It could be setting up what Matt had mentioned and what we had talked about in previous episodes leading up to this, for for the entire season, which was the eventual showdown of the Batch versus Crosshair and the potential turn of Crosshair back to the good side, and in Matt's opinion, his ultimate death, as he's mentioned. Now that I kind of think about the show a little bit more and have now settled into the idea that the Bad Batch is likely going to be a multiple season type of series, I'm not 100% in on that. I'm not 100% in on that. We may get this ultimate showdown at the end of season 1, because if there is a season 2, which I'm assuming there will be, it actually would be better to keep Crosshair around as a point of antagonism through season 2 and kind of draw that encounter out a little bit more. It would be a fucking awesome way to end season 1, and then you essentially have the resolution of that plot arc done in one season. But I think if they wanted to, you could extend Crosshair's time as a villain into season 2 and not necessarily have to wrap that up in season 1. Obviously, if they do, it would still work out perfectly, because now you have a more established post-clone world on the Imperial side that we have transitioned to, which was another huge part of this episode. We talked about this a lot leading up. We figured that War Mantle was essentially going to be the full transition from clone forces to War Mantle forces, or conscripted soldiers. And that's definitely what we saw in this episode. You get the TK designation that is now assigned to these new soldiers that aren't clones, that Tech mentions. He says that, TK, I don't know that designation. And obviously we know TK421 and all of the other TKs from the original trilogy. So that transition has happened. You get again, like Matt mentioned in his video, or his little spiel earlier, you get the introduction of essentially phase 1 stormtroopers. The McQuarrie-esque design of the stormtrooper helmet you start to see the evolution towards the stormtrooper helmets that we see in the original trilogy. I thought that was really amazing to see. You get the super commandos, the clone super commandos that were included in this. And like Matt mentioned, you essentially get Scorch from Republic Commandos included in this episode. There were a ton of great things in here, but obviously the one standout one that we've been calling for since basically the beginning of Bad Batch was, when and how are we going to see the three main clones come together? And those 3 main clones are Rex, Wolf, and Gregor. We have 2 now, thanks to this episode. We, earlier in the season, we got our Bad Batch intro to Rex, and now we have the rescue of Gregor, designation CC5576, in this episode. So essentially what happens in War Mantle is Rex sends the Batch on a rescue mission to get a reg, and you don't know who the reg is, but if you're one of us, if you're crazy, then you knew it was either going to be Gregor or Wolf. And once the Batch undertakes the mission and gets to the cell of the reg inside of this hidden Imperial facility, you find out that it is Gregor. So now the pieces are starting to come together. We still have yet to see Wolf and where he is and how we link back up with him, but at least we have Gregor here again. Matt went through a lot of his Easter eggs and stuff like that. I mentioned a few of them with the TK helmet, obviously Gregor being in there. the clone commando Scorch from Republic Commando. And I mean, overall, this episode was super good. I mean, this is what we were kind of waiting for, and I think this is what we were all hoping to see at the end of season 1, is like this kind of this reckoning, this post clone era reckoning for the Empire. And not only do you see that through the TK designation and the use of more conscripted soldiers, you also see it through what we essentially believe is the murder of Lama Su, and then the capture of Nala Se. And it was very interesting, like Matt mentioned in his breakdown, is that we were under the assumption that they would just kind of go scorched earth on the actual Kaminoans, and then maybe have some of the human or other scientists that weren't Kaminoans captured and then put to work under the Imperial banner. But it looks like Nala Se is actually going to be captured and not killed immediately, where Lama Su is likely already executed. So, and then that obviously sets up a lot of further things, like Matt mentioned in his breakdown, the clone facility that we see in Mandalorian, the continued existence of Kaminoan scientists like the doctor from Mando, and now we have the potential. We're setting up what is essentially the Tross kind of twist, where the Emperor is still alive except in a clone body. And that's kind of what we've been working towards this whole time. I'm sure this is, this will feed into that narrative overall. So I thought that this episode not only did a fantastic job of setting up the next two, like the penultimate and the ultimate episode of season 1 of Bad Batch, but I think it does do a good job of just setting up further narratives, narratives that come way later. I mean, you're talking upwards of 20 plus years until we see the clone facility on Mandalorian, in the Mandalorian on Navarro. And then you're obviously still much further out from that until you encounter the clone emperor in Tross. So it's cool to see that the team working on Bad Batch, and that they're already working on these through lines, and they know what they have to connect and stuff like that. So I thought that was really cool that was all included in this episode. Bad Batch is definitely living up to my expectations. I know that there's been a lot of talk of filler and everything like that, and I kind of addressed that earlier when we first started talking about the show. But I think that you have to realize, and what I don't think a lot of people understand is that episodes like Infested are needed for episodes like War Mantle to exist. If we were to just if you were to say, quote unquote, cut the filler and just get right to the story, episode or season 1 would have been 7 episodes, 8 episodes max. There was a lot of stuff in there that you could have cut if you just wanted to follow the through line, if you just wanted to follow the main overarching story plot. And I don't think that people realize that Clone Wars has as much filler as it does. And I know that if you're one of the people who have started a rewatch, or have done a complete rewatch of all of the Clone Wars, then you know exactly how much filler is in there, and it's a lot. I mean, there are episodes where you don't even see Anakin or Obi-Wan or Ahsoka or anybody. You spend whole episodes with the droids, and that's the kind of multiple times that's happened in Clone Wars. And you have to understand. I think people just have to accept that in a TV series that's expected to go multiple seasons, you can't just bang out, arcing story episode next to arcing story episode next to arcing story episode and have 120 plus episodes in a series. There are going to be some that are down. I know it sucks when, you're working off of a weekly scheduled release and you don't have bingeable content like you do on Netflix, because you have to have, you essentially have one down episode and you have to sit with it for a week. Yeah, that does suck. But, I think overall for the quality that we've gotten out of Bad Batch so far, I'm happy to have a few down episodes here. Especially when an episode like War Mantle exists that really does push stuff forward in a significant way. So I was a huge fan of that. But yes, if you haven't seen Bad Batch yet, if you're waiting on it, if you're sleeping on it, or if you're kind of waiting until season 1 is fully out before you start watching it, I would just recommend that you just start watching it now. I mean, War Mantle, like I said, is the first episode of the 3-episode arc to end season 1, and it does it in a really great fashion. So, very excited about the Bad Batch's final 2 episodes. Looking forward to it very much. Check it out. What's it all about? Okay, so that's Bad Batch season 1, episode 14, War Mantle. Matt gave you the egg rundown. I gave you my thoughts on the episode and my thoughts on the series as a whole. So check it out. Let us know what you thought about it. Well, actually, you'll do that because you already have in the question of the week, which I'll get to later. I'm not going to do a full recap of Star Wars number 15. Matt put out his recap and review video on YouTube. So if you've been keeping up with his run through the Star Wars comic world, go check out the video. Star Wars number 15 recap and review. Check it out on the Star Wars Time Show YouTube channel. Thank you very much. All right. Like I said, this has been a pretty slow week in terms of Star Wars. Slow and mellow. Slow and low. But one of the things, we actually did get 3 pieces of news this week, and 2 of them I already ran through. Terrifying Tales, the Felicity Jones piece on her being very much open to a return to Jen Erso. And this last piece here is actually just fun. I put it towards the back end because this is technically toy news. Toys done by Nick, right? Except it's not the toys that you guys are used to hearing about. The toy this week is a brand new reveal from Star Wars and Tamagotchi. Yes, if you are a child of the 90s, like I was, you know that Tamagotchis were like the most popular toy ever to exist ever. Tamagotchis and Neopets. For those of you who are not children of the 90s and have no fucking clue what a Tamagotchi is, I will explain it to you because it is very, very stupid. Tamagotchis are virtual pets, essentially. They are little electronic devices that you can carry around in your pocket, and it has a little virtual creature on it for you to take care of. Tamagotchis essentially require you to interact with them a few times during the day. The old ones, where they were like more modeled after like dogs or cats, you would have to like clean up their poop, play with them, feed them, train them, and all these little things on this little, it's literally an egg-shaped little handheld device. Not even, I mean, like it'll fit in the palm of your hand, even if you have a small hand. And it was just like a little animal that you kept with you in your pocket, a little virtual animal that you kept with you in your pocket. And I hadn't heard from Tamagotchi since I was a kid. I had one. Mine was a black and orange little plastic shell egg. And then I believe I had a little dog. And you'd have to clean up the poop and play with it, feed it, and all of that kind of stuff. But now Tamagotchi and Star Wars have collaborated to make an R2d2 Tamagotchi. So yes, you can have your very own R2d2 virtual pet that you carry around in your pocket at all times. The R2d2 Tamagotchi is going to release on November 11th this year. So if you're a nostalgia, loving person and you're a kid of the 90s, then here you go. I mean, like, there's nothing more fucking nostalgic for you as a kid of the 90s than an R2d2 Tamagotchi. And I mean, it doesn't even look like, from what I've seen so far and from what the images from what we got from Star Wars show, it doesn't even look like they've really updated the UI or the UX that much. Like, it is literally still like kind of that like light green screen, the black pixels to create your little virtual pet, and then the 3 buttons on the bottom that you use to control it. It's literally just stock and locked Tamagotchi, except this time it's R2D2. I'm very interested to see what kind of things they're going to have you do. Obviously, R2D2 doesn't poop, so you're not going to need to clean up poop. Maybe you'll have to give him oil baths like Luke did in episode 4. Maybe you'll have to scrape some carbon scoring off of him. Maybe you're gonna have to update his programming or teach him some new tricks and stuff like that. But get ready. November 11th is when the Star Wars R2D2 Tamagotchi will be hitting shelves near you. I even said in the article on StarWarsTime.net, I'm probably not going to get one. It would literally only be for pure nostalgia purposes that I would get one. There is no way that I would actually care for Tamagotchi, because I just I had fun when I was a kid, when I was like 9 or 10 years old with that, but I just don't have a desire to do that as a 30-year-old plus man. Just not something that I'm interested in. But you know what? Depending on their price point, maybe I'll just pick up one for nostalgia purposes and have it, sit on my shelf next to all of my other tchotchkes and stuff. Yeah, so there you go. There's your toy news out there, everybody. Star Wars R2D2 Tamagotchi coming November 11th. Look at that. All right, everybody. That's going to bring us into our fan segment for this week. And we always kick the fan segment off with the question of the week. And the question of the week this week actually does have quite a few responses. Usually we were only getting about 5 responses per week, which was a little disappointing. But this time we got a few. I'm still only going to read 5. But you know what? I'm happy to see that more people are interacting with the question of the week and giving your thoughts on the Bad Batch. So we'll start it off with Sir Dork 730. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He's a big fan of the show. He's an up and coming toy photographer. Just a really fantastic young talent in the toy photography world. Everybody knows Sir Dork. If you don't know Sir Dork 730, get your head out of your ass. Just kidding. All right. So Jared says, definitely my favorite episode so far. So many reasons. I just hope that Gonky is doing okay. That's the first. He's right. This is the first time that Gonky has actually ever done anything to help the Batch out. And it was when they were essentially on their escape after Hunter gets captured at the end of the episode. And they get hit around their aft section of the ship, and it shuts down one of the engines. You know what? Gonky saves the day. He's walking through the ship freaking out like Gonk droids are wont to do, and then Omega grabs him, says, Gonky, you can help us, plugs him into the ship, gets everything booted back up, and the Batch is able to... Random Picks in J says, hearing Gregor's kind of creepy laugh. Yeah, right? That was, it was interesting. The creepy laugh from Gregor definitely had an effect the first time you hear it. It was very fun. Zane Reeves Vision says, seeing Scorch and what the inhibitor chip did to him. He was always the one who had a sense of humor in battle, and seeing him completely silent really emphasizes the effects of the chips have on the clones and their personalities. That's very true. Very true. It was just Scorch's inclusion overall in this episode was really cool, that they're still paying homage to those old school video game characters. So I was that. Next up, Star Wars Black Series Clips. He says, seeing the Phase 1 Stormtroopers was a highlight for me. There was so much to like in this one, but the callback to the early McQuarrie designs was badass. I mean, anytime you get like McQuarrie inspired stuff in the visual format, the moving pictures for Star Wars. It's always awesome. I think that's why I was always attracted to the Rebels version of Darth Vader, because it does have more of that McQuarrie look to it, especially in the helmet. And yeah, seeing now that we've dubbed the Phase 1 Stormtroopers, it was really cool that they still pull from Ralph McQuarrie's work all these years later. Tones1138 says, love the First Blood themes to it. Gregor being hunted in the woods, and hunters fall from the cliff through the trees. The base and planet were straight out of the Thrawn trilogy from Tim Zahn's novels. Mount Tantus on the planet Wayland from The Last Command. And as for the musical score, absolutely incredible. Music straight out of A New Hope that fit perfectly for the chase / rescue through the base. This episode felt more like Star Wars than any other I have watched, and at times took me back to my childhood with the combined audio and video. Absolutely incredible episode. Yes, I mean, I agree with that. This one was like, we're starting to get more into that A New Hope area now. Like, we're starting to see not only the universe as a whole make that shift more toward the A New Hope timeline because of the Imperial grip tightening across the galaxy, but you're also seeing it in the visual medium, like Tones just said. You're seeing proper stormtroopers now, or the evolution of towards stormtroopers. You're seeing the TK designation, or you're hearing that TK designation, and everything is feeling much more A New Hope original trilogy like towards the end of season 1 of Bad Batch. So I was also a huge fan of that. Max Maldini says it was great to see what is starting to unfold for the season's finale. This episode is the best so far, and it is crucial to the fate of the clones and their makers. We shall see how the Empire will try to get rid of the remaining clone forces and how they wake up from their Order 66 lucid dream. I love the concept stormtroopers and the Scorches as well. Yes, indeed. Huffman Stevens says, when Hunter said to Gregor, I thought you trained these guys, and Gregor's response, I didn't teach them anything. That wouldn't be too smart. No, it was 100%. And like, even beyond that, like, Hunter, they or Gregor says, like, it's like, yeah, they're good, but they're not good like us, like, and I think that's something that we were always very curious about leading into this. Like, why would they move away from clones? And aside from, now we see that even after being trained by some of the best that the clone forces had to offer, they're still not going to meet that deadly precision. They're still not going to meet that level of execution that clones had. And I think that, this may give some context to the line, that always famous line from Kenobi back in the day in A New Hope. It's like, see these blast points? Too precise for sand people. Only Imperial stormtroopers are that accurate. And as we know now, leading up to A New Hope, Kenobi was essentially stuck in the desert for 20 years. And he missed a lot of what was happening during that time. And I don't know how many interactions he actually had with TK designation stormtroopers. He probably remembers the clone troopers and knows that post Order 66, and he remembers, man, all of the clone troopers who were under my command, these elite fighting soldiers who were bred and born for one purpose. He was more hearkening towards that, more talking about the clone forces that he worked with in their ultimate betrayal because of Order 66. And he probably wasn't as familiar with TK designation, the War Mantle conscripted soldiers from across the galaxy, which essentially turned out to be buffoons for the most part. But now we also know that it just wasn't possible to continue to make clone troopers because of the material degradation, the genetic degradation from Jango Fett's original sample, and then obviously the Kaminoans no longer having access to Omega to harvest from her. So it is kind of interesting to see how the evolution of the Imperial Army is now changing. That the clone troopers are being phased out, for lack of a better term. Mando Muggle says that Scorch cameo as the elevator doors open. Then I realized Delta Squad's going to be the bad guys. Yeah, we have to see if they're going to bring in the rest of Delta Squad. But yes, the Scorch stuff was awesome. A figure eight photo says Scorch and nothing else. Not even Gregor. Not even the Mark. Not even the Macquarie. I thought you said Marquee, but the Macquarie stormtroopers, full on Scorch, stole the show. And then Captain Hauser 66 says the early TK armor and fresh batch of stormtroopers. Yes, I mean those. I feel like the general consensus here is seeing that switch, seeing the flip of War Mantle switch away from clone designated troopers to the conscripted soldiers or the volunteer soldiers that the Empire has been gathering throughout the galaxy. So, really awesome stuff there from War Mantle, Bad Batch Season 1, Episode 14. And thank you to everybody who responded to our question of the week. We always enjoy when we get to hear your thoughts on things. So please, every Tuesday morning, check our Instagram. There will be a post that is soliciting your thoughts on question of the week. So make sure to go there and drop your thoughts. And that will take us to the top 5 Star Wars fan arts features of the week. Put together by me, your solo host for this cast, Nick. But these shots are picked out. Well, I pick my shots out from Matt's weekly work of picking out the photos that we were tagged in using hashtag Star Wars Time Show and using the tag at Star Wars Time Show on posts. So if you want to get involved in this segment, if you want to potentially get your shot featured in the top 5 segment for the week, make sure to use hashtag Star Wars Time Show. Make sure to add us at Star Wars Time Show when you post your images. That is how we will see you. That is how Matt will gather your image, if it is to his liking, to be featured on our Instagram feed, and that is how you will be entered to be a top 5 winner. The top 5 this week start off with at Nicholas Schvetz at NICOLAS_SHVETS on Instagram. And Nicholas is he's a digital artist, photo manipulator. So this is not a toy shot, but what we have here is an absolutely killer representation of what I'll call what some in our fandom have dubbed the Mandalorian, and I really love that term. So what you essentially see is full Beskar Mando, full Beskar Mando from the Mandalorian, with some awesome Loki horns coming out of the helmet, and then on the chest plate, on the Beskar chest plate of the Mando, is etched on the Loki helmet with horns kind of crest on there, you could say. And I mean, this is just fantastic. A perfect crossover between 2 Disney franchises. In the background too, you can see the Loki style background with the clock going on here. It has an excellent like bronzed tone to it as well to match with that Loki color palette. You can even see that Nicholas changed the garment color, the Mando Under Armour garment color to the green to match the Loki variants and such in the show. So I mean, this was just an absolutely fantastic visual representation / photo manipulation from Nicholas Schvetz of a Mandalorian. I know this is a visual cast. This is not a visual podcast right now because we're not doing a live stream, and there will be no live stream showing on YouTube. But if you want to see this particular image, make sure to go to at Nicholas NICOLAS _SHVETS on Instagram and check this image out. You'll see the Mandalorian as soon as you hit his page. It is truly a work of art. So beautiful stuff here. And next up for our top 5, we have at collectors.orbit. And what we're looking at here is an awesome action shot of Jedi Knight Luke Skywalker. And again, like I'm taking this as an alternate path for Luke during episode 6. So it looks like he is on the floor of the forest moon of Endor. He is not, he's actually on the battlefield when the stormtrooper fighting is going on. So he didn't make his way into the into the Death Star and have his ultimate showdown with Vader. He's actually on the ground on Endor, cutting stormtroopers' heads off and fighting through the battlefield. And I thought that was awesome. It's a really good pose, kind of like a crouch down, striking back with his green lightsaber pose. You see there's 2 stormtroopers in the background. One of them literally decapitated, his head flying above his body. The other one kind of standing there staring at him like, man, maybe I made a bad decision to approach Luke Skywalker. And I just thought it was a really cool action shot. Decapitation shots are always really cool, especially when it's a stormtrooper bucket flying through the air. So I was a big fan of that one. Yeah, just good stuff all around by at collectors.orbit on the IG. Make sure to go give him a follow. And once you do, you can check out that shot on his feed. There you go. Next up is one that is near and dear to my heart and is a character that we don't often get to see in the toy photography space. And this is from at Mr. Djarin. So at MRDJARIN. So this is Din Djarin himself right here, putting up toy photography on the IG. And what we see is a Lego photograph, a Lego shot of Darth Malgus. And Darth Malgus, for those unfamiliar, is the main antagonist of Star Wars The Old Republic MMO, SWTOR, as I call it on the show sometimes. And Darth Malgus is an imposing figure. He's kind of this mix between, the bottom face mask respirator of Darth Malak and the really kind of burnt, kind of decrepit looking facial aspects of Darth Vader. He too was shocked by lightning and had some facial scarring come from that. And just overall, he is a very worn person. But this Lego figure of Darth Malgus, he's essentially the Darth Vader of the Old Republic, is the best way to put it. But this Lego figure of Darth Malgus is absolutely fantastic. And I don't know if this is a custom fabricated little cloak here from Mr. Djarin, but he does have a soft goods cloak that he's whipping with the hood up. He even went in and added in post-processing some lighting effects to the respirator mask. And so what you see is Darth Malgus's little Lego figure walking through a looks like it's an Imperial shuttle or an Imperial ship at the time that's on fire. You see the fire effects in the background. In the foreground, you see Boca from the fire, little sparks coming up, smoke in the background. Excellent atmospheric work for a Lego shot from Mr. Djarin, and an absolutely imposing grab of a Lego figure, which is always really fun to see for me when you can make a figure that is essentially an inch tall look imposing, like Mr. Djarin was able to do with this Darth Malgus Lego minifig. I mean, it's just always top-notch work. So excellent work at Mr. MRDJARIN on Instagram, Mr. Djarin. Thank you. Next up, number 4 for this week is our good friend True Perry. True Perry has an absolutely, it's kind of a heartbreaking shot when you think about it. True Perry has an Imperial Scout Trooper standing over the corpses of 2 Ewoks that he's just killed in cold blood. And this is an Imperial Scout Trooper, aka a sharpshooter, because you can see that as he is standing over these fallen Ewoks, he has his sniper rifle drawn with smoke actively coming out of the barrel. And, you know, the work that True Perry did on the shot, is actually super fucking good. I mean, the weathering that he did on the Scout Trooper is fantastic. Like, you can see just dirt and grime on his armor. He's got some leather, some cloth wraps around his arms and his wrists. He's got cloth wraps around his gun. And an awesome, I mean, I don't know where this cloak is from. I think it might be like a Mud Trooper cloak or something else, like the Solo Mud Trooper cloak. But I can't tell. I'm not really good at picking out like Kit Bash stuff. But the Scout Trooper also has this cloak, this like brown muddy cloak over his back to clearly like, you know, try to give him some camouflage when he's laying in the brush, because white armor would be pretty easy to pick out if you're laying in green grass. And he's just kind of like, you know, in the shot, he's standing over one of the bodies, just kind of has a foot on it, like pushing it to ensure that he's deceased, and just kind of looking down at it in a relatively nonchalant way. I just thought it was a fantastic shot from True Perry. It really captures the wartime feeling of Star Wars. I think that like we always like forget the gritty side of Star Wars, which has really only been shown like the actual ground battles of Star Wars that don't include, you know, Force users, that don't include ships and stuff like that. This actually does kind of evoke the actual war that is happening in Star Wars. So absolutely fantastic stuff here by True Perry, TruuPPERI on the IG. Go give him a follow, and you can see this shot on his feed too. So if you click over to the True Perry, you'll see it. And he even gives you a little behind the scenes on it too. Gotta love it. Gotta love it. All right, the last one for the top 5. We're coming to an end. And I told you guys it was going to be sub hour and 20 minutes. We're at an hour and about 4 or 5 minutes now. So this last one here is from @ChezPix66. And it's a ChezPix classic. ChezPix Especial. And what, if you know Chez, you know Chris, you know he's known for his natural light sand dunes shot. I don't know where Chris is in the world, but he has an absolutely beautiful sandy area somewhere near him where he just always gets the best natural light images. It almost looks like Chris lives on Tatooine from time to time. And then this shot in particular. So what we see is the Tatooine native Boba Fett. So, you know, the pre-Neo Fett. So he's still whipping his gaffy stick and his long rifle from the Tusken Raiders. He still has his cloak on, and he's making his way through the Tatooine desert. And in the background, just perfectly executed by Chez, are the twin sons of Tatooine that are perfectly separated, split by his long rifle. His long rifle kind of is sitting right in between the twin sons of Tatooine, and it's just a perfect shot of like dust-filled atmospheric Tatooine with the twin sons in the background, and you know, and Boba Fett approaching you. It just captures that essence of Wanderer Boba Fett so perfectly. And not only does it capture Boba Fett, but it captures Tatooine in general so perfectly. I mean, it's just a fantastic overall shot by @ChezPix66 on the IG. And I mean, like I said, if you're a fan of Chez, or if you know of Chez, it's just top-notch work. In fact, I think that like one of this might be like the second time in 3 weeks that he's made the top 5 because of just his creative work and using his environment to his advantage so well. And Yeah, man. I mean, it's just a beautiful shot. At ChezPick66 on the IG. Go give him a follow as well. And you know what? That's going to bring us to the end of the show this week. And I want to close out this show by thanking our sponsors, Manscaped, for another awesome month of support. You know that we here at Star Wars Time Show, we love our Manscaped, and we love the support that they give us month over month for our program. And we also love all of the awesome things that they have given us. So let's give some good words out there for Manscaped. So thank you to everybody who's listened to the Star Wars Time Show. And as Matt says, if you listen to the Star Wars Time Show, the Force will be with you always.